For years, I convinced myself that if I just worked harder, I'd finally see the fruits of my labor. I believed that putting in more hours, sacrificing weekends, and pushing through exhaustion would somehow magically turn my efforts into financial abundance. But no matter how many late nights I endured or how many extra shifts I took, something felt off. I was exhausted, yes. Frustrated, absolutely. Yet, deep down, I sensed that something was missing, something I couldn't quite put my finger on. I kept telling myself, just a little more effort, Juliana, then you'll be there. But the truth was, the more I pushed, the more remote prosperity seemed to become. It was a strange paradox. I was doing everything right in the conventional sense, working tirelessly, chasing after opportunities, and trying to keep my head above water, but I wasn't getting ahead. I couldn't shake the feeling that no matter how much I poured into my work, I was still caught in a cycle of scarcity. The bills piled up faster than my paycheck. My energy was drained dry, and my spirit started to fade under the weight of constant effort with little reward. I kept asking myself, why isn't this working? I looked around at friends and colleagues who seemed to be achieving success with what appeared to be much less struggle. Sometimes, I wondered if I was doing something fundamentally wrong. That's when I started to realize that there might be more to the story than just effort. I began hearing whispers of something different, something about the mind, beliefs, and energy. A voice inside told me that perhaps my struggles weren't just about hard work, but also about what I believed at a subconscious level. It sounded strange at first, almost like a foreign language to me, but I couldn't ignore the persistent feeling that I was missing a vital piece of the puzzle. I started to wonder, what if the way I thought about money, success, and abundance was actually shaping my reality more than I realized? What if my efforts, powerful as they seemed, were being blocked by unseen mental barriers buried deep within my mind? I started paying attention. I noticed that, even in moments of genuine effort, I often felt anxious, as if I was fighting against an invisible force. Like I was rowing a boat against the current, exhausting myself without making any real progress. I would visualize success, hope for more, and even set goals. Yet a small, persistent voice inside kept saying, "You're never going to have enough," or "This is just how life is." That voice, that hidden thought pattern, was quietly sabotaging my intentions, keeping me stuck in a loop I couldn't seem to escape. And it wasn't just about money. It was about feeling worthy of it, feeling deserving of prosperity, not just wishing for it, but truly believing it was mine. I knew I needed to do something different, but I didn't know what. I was desperate for change, but felt powerless against the mental barriers I didn't yet understand. It was as if a silent war was raging inside me. Effort versus inner doubt, striving versus subconscious resistance. I kept asking myself, how can I work so hard and still feel so empty? How can I be so determined, yet see so little result? It was frustrating, exhausting, even knowing I was doing my part, but still feeling like I was hitting an invisible ceiling. One day, everything shifted when I realized that my biggest challenge wasn't external, it was inside me. A pattern of thoughts that I repeated daily, almost like a song I didn't even know I was singing, was actually the silent force shaping my reality. It was the core reason I was still caught in scarcity despite all my effort. That realization hit hard. It was humbling, but it was also freeing. If I could identify that hidden thought, if I could reprogram my subconscious and start aligning my inner world with my outer goals, everything might change. As I continued to reflect on my struggles, I started noticing a pattern that went beyond mere beliefs. It was like a quiet, persistent whisper that echoed in the background of my mind, subtly guiding my perceptions and reactions. These subtle cues influenced not just how I responded to immediate circumstances, but also how I viewed my future prospects. Think of it as a filter, a lens through which I interpreted every opportunity or obstacle that came my way. If that lens was clouded with doubt or limited expectations, then my actions naturally aligned with those beliefs, keeping prosperity just out of reach. Furthermore, I realized that the stories I told myself about what was possible played an outsized role in constructing my experience. These internal narratives, often crafted through years of conditioning, limited my potential without me even realizing it. Like a narrator in my subconscious, they kept emphasizing scarcity, risk, and insecurity, reinforcing a cycle of limitation. Imagine trying to build a house on unstable ground. That's what operating with these ingrained stories felt like. No matter how beautiful the blueprint of my goals might have been, the foundation was riddled with cracks, making success unstable and ultimately unachievable. Building on this, however, I uncovered that the key to shifting my outer world lay in consciously rewiring those underlying scripts. It was about replacing old, disempowering stories with ones rooted in possibility, gratitude, and confidence. I started experimenting with new language, affirmations that focused not on what I lacked, but on what I was becoming. Instead of, "I can't afford this," I declared, "I am attracting opportunities to increase my abundance every day." It felt awkward at first, a bit like trying on a new set of clothes that didn't quite fit. But over time, the more I repeated these positive statements, the more natural they became. Like planting seeds in rich soil, these affirmations began to grow roots deep in my subconscious, gently rewiring the way I interacted with my circumstances. Another profound insight came when I began paying attention to my emotional responses. I noticed that negative feelings, worry, frustration, impatience, were not just fleeting states. They functioned as signals. They were like alarms alerting me to thoughts or beliefs that needed to be examined. If I felt anxious about money, it was a sign that I was focusing on lack rather than abundance. Instead of suppressing those feelings, I learned to gently observe them, recognizing their message. Then, I would intentionally shift my focus toward gratitude or visualizations of prosperity to reinforce positive vibrations. This process became a form of self-awareness that transformed the way I interacted with my inner dialogue. Now, consider how this applies when you face daily challenges. When a bill arrives unexpectedly or transactions seem slow, it's easy to spiral into panic or frustration. But what if, instead, you viewed these moments as opportunities to practice a new response? A moment to pause, breathe, and recalibrate your mental state. That shift in perspective can be the difference between remaining stuck and opening a door to abundance. It's like steering a ship. Small adjustments in direction, even when currents are strong, can set you on a completely different course. Every thought, every emotion, acts as a rudder, guiding your energy toward either scarcity or prosperity. Let's also explore how your environment influences this process. When I began surrounding myself with images, words, and people who embodied prosperity, I noticed my subconscious began to absorb those signals more deeply. Your mental landscape is akin to a garden. It flourishes with positive nourishment, and weeds of doubt and fear can choke out the growth of abundance. The practice of visualizing success, immersing myself in inspiring stories, and choosing affirmations consciously became like watering and fertilizing my inner garden. Over time, this cultivated a fertile ground where new beliefs could take root with greater ease. Finally, it's essential to understand that this transformation isn't instantaneous. Just like planting a seed requires patience and consistent care, rewiring long-standing mental patterns demands a gentle but persistent commitment. There will be days when old doubts resurface, trying to undo all your progress. That's part of the process. But each time you notice these limiting thoughts, you have the power to choose a different response. You can replace the old narrative with a new, empowering story, affirming, nurturing, and aligned with your highest vision. With patience and perseverance, you'll gradually shift towards a mindset that welcomes prosperity as a natural state, simply because that's what your inner world now radiates. Building on this realization, I began to understand how the subconscious mind acts like a powerful magnet, constantly pulling toward matching vibrations. I'd noticed that my feelings of insecurity or doubt sent out a vibration that attracted more experiences confirming those fears. Likewise, moments of genuine gratitude, however fleeting, shift the entire energetic landscape. Think of it as tuning a radio. When you adjust the dial from static to music, suddenly everything aligns, and the sound becomes clear. When I tuned my inner frequency to approval, abundance, and reassurance, plenty of opportunities naturally echoed back to me. One crucial insight I uncovered was that the subconscious operates through patterns that are often formed long before we become aware of them. These are habits of thought and emotion that have been reinforced over years, like grooves in a record. Once ingrained, they play on repeat, silently directing our reactions and expectations. The challenge, then, lies in creating new grooves, fresh pathways that promote growth instead of stagnation. It's comparable to carving through hardened clay. The more I pressed into that softening material with consistent effort, the easier it was for the new track to imprint. Over time, these new mental pathways became the default, gradually replacing the old, limiting routes. Another layer to consider involves the role of sensory impressions in shaping our belief systems. Every visual, auditory, or tactile input influences inner conviction, often more powerfully than we realize. When I started surrounding myself with images symbolizing prosperity, luxurious homes, thriving businesses, joyful moments, I wasn't just filling my space with pretty pictures. I was sending a message to my subconscious that living in abundance was a natural, achievable state. This process is akin to planting a garden. The more diverse the seed variety and the more consistent your watering, the more vibrant your harvest. The photos, affirmations, and even music I chose became active contributors, nourishing new beliefs capable of overcoming long-standing doubts. Now, consider how the emotional landscape plays a pivotal role. Feelings act like messengers, transmitting the intensity of our focus and desire. When I felt anxious or frustrated, I was inadvertently amplifying scarcity vibrations, even if I was visualizing wealth at the same time. Conversely, cultivating genuine feelings of joy and confidence created an entirely different energetic ambience, one in which prosperity could flow effortlessly. It's comparable to a musical instrument. A note played with passion and conviction resonates more deeply than one played mechanically. So, I learned to deliberately evoke strong positive emotions through visualization, imagining every detail as if it were already tangible. I would immerse myself in the sensation of holding a dream check, hearing the applause at a success event, or feeling the warmth of financial security. These feelings charged my intentions with vitality, making the manifestation process far more potent. Another noteworthy point is that life continuously tests our new beliefs, much like a challenge course. Whenever I faced setbacks, an unexpected expense, a delayed opportunity, I realized these were not signs of failure, but opportunities to reaffirm my commitment. Instead of falling into discouragement, I practiced observing my thoughts without judgment. This awareness allowed me to detach from negativity and gently redirect my focus. I began to understand that patience and persistence are essential in rewiring my inner landscape. Each moment I chose to hold on to unwavering faith, despite appearances, added a brick to my foundation of abundance consciousness. Furthermore, I started viewing every circumstance as a mirror of my internal state. If I encountered a financial difficulty, I no longer saw it as an external enemy, but as an invitation to refine my beliefs and feelings. I asked myself, what message am I sending through this situation? Often, it was a subconscious plea for reassurance or recognition of my worthiness. Recognizing this gave me the power to take immediate action in my mind, replacing fear with confidence, doubt with trust. I understood that my outer experiences are echoes of my inner vibrations, and by consciously shifting those vibrations, I could begin attracting circumstances aligned with prosperity. Lastly, I realized that staying mindful of my mental and emotional climate requires ongoing effort. It's a continuous process of self-awareness and conscious decision-making. Each day became an opportunity to reinforce the new mental patterns I wanted to cultivate. I'd pause to check my inner dialogue, replenish feelings of gratitude, and visualize success. All of these acts reinforcing my new mental terrain. Over time, these disciplined practices gradually rewired my subconscious, replacing old doubts with a vibrant belief in limitless possibilities. It's as if I was constructing a mental sanctuary where prosperity is the natural state, accessible, inevitable, and ever-present. And that's a transformation I want for you too, because the more you understand how this inner work functions, the more unstoppable your journey becomes. Once I understood that my subconscious was like a vast, infinite network of interconnected pathways, I became curious about how those neural routes could be redefined. It's comparable to a sprawling city that's been mapped out for decades with roads leading to dead ends and congested crossings. If I wanted to change my destination, my financial reality, I had to start renovating that map. Every thought I entertained, every emotion I allowed myself to dwell on, was like laying new asphalt or redirecting a crumbling street. From that perspective, it became clear that changing my outer circumstances meant actively reconstructing my internal routes. Deepening this approach, I began to see that mental patterns are comparable to habits ingrained in the muscles. Just as a professional athlete repeats certain movements to master a technique, I could consciously practice new thought patterns until they became second nature. The challenge was, I had been running on the old routines for so long, doubts, fears, and scarcity stories, that switching to a new mental habit required deliberate effort. For every negative thought that crept into my mind, I introduced a positive, empowering alternative. It wasn't about suppressing the old beliefs, but replacing them with something stronger. Fueling this mental exercise was the understanding that my focus was like the engine that powered my reality forward. If I directed my attention like a laser beam toward thriving and gratitude, the universe responded by rearranging circumstances to reflect that energy. Equally transformative was developing a heightened awareness of the subtle cues in my environment. Small coincidences suddenly appeared as meaningful signals rather than random happenstance. For example, I might have been dwelling on a desire for a new job opportunity, and then unexpectedly, a friend or acquaintance would mention a position open in their workplace. These weren't mere chance moments. They were the universe's way of nudging me closer to my goal. To embed this shift, I started consciously observing these exchanges as confirmations that my intentions were gaining momentum. It was as if the universe started whispering back, "You're on the right track," in myriad ways. This recognition transformed my attitude from one of frustration into a state of eager expectancy, which in turn heightened the magnetic quality of my vibrations. Furthermore, I discovered that emotional energy acts like a potent catalyst. To truly harness my internal power, I had to cultivate feelings that matched the success I was calling into existence. It was not enough to merely think positive or hope for a better future. I had to generate genuine excitement and a deep sense of gratitude. I learned to anchor my mind in moments where I visualized living my dream lifestyle with vivid detail. The warmth of the sun on my skin as I stood before a new home, the sound of my laughter as I celebrated a financial milestone, the sensation of relief and pride flooding through me. These emotional currents became the driving force behind my manifestations, infusing my intentions with energy that could penetrate the physical plane. Without that emotional charge, the words or images I used to visualize remained passive thoughts. With it, they became a living, breathing force capable of shaping reality. Switching focus from hopes to genuine feelings required me to pay close attention to my internal state. I couldn't, for instance, pretend to feel abundant while secretly stressing about bills. Instead, I practiced cultivating feelings of safety and trust even amidst financial uncertainty. This meant deliberately shifting my vibe whenever I caught a thought or emotion that reflected scarcity. I would pause, take a breath, and redirect my awareness toward gratitude, recalling moments when abundance had shown up unexpectedly or imagining scenarios in which I comfortably received prosperity. This inner recalibration created a ripple effect, elevating my vibration and making me more receptive to new opportunities. Each movement of my mental state became like tuning a musical instrument. The harmony I generated attracted the frequency of wealth and fulfillment. Consider how every new belief becomes like a seed planted into fertile soil. If I wanted abundant harvests, I had to nourish those seeds with daily care. That meant more than just repeatedly saying affirmations. It involved integrating them into my actions and environment. I started to look for evidence that supported my new perspective, small wins, acknowledgments, situations that reflected my inner shift. When I encountered resistance, instead of fighting it, I viewed those moments as invitations to dig deeper into my subconscious patterns. I might journal about the doubts or fears that rose, and then consciously choose a different, more empowering thought. This act of revising my internal narrative rewired my subconscious beliefs at their core, like replacing old wiring in a building with new, more efficient circuits. Eventually, it became clear that the process of transformation isn't solely about mental discipline, but about embodying a state of being. It's a natural evolution where your outward world begins to mirror your internal alignment. You start to feel as if success and abundance are already present, simply waiting for your recognition. This shift isn't merely intellectual, it's visceral, a complete change in your energy field. As I grew more committed to honoring that state, I found that my actions flowed effortlessly, like a river finding its course. And every step taken from this place of internal harmony pushed me closer to the abundant life I had always imagined, and, more importantly, deserved. As I continued refining my focus, I encountered a subtle yet powerful realization: the importance of aligning my daily habits with my newly cultivated beliefs. This isn't about making massive, sweeping changes overnight. Rather, it's about weaving consistency into the fabric of your routine. Small, disciplined acts, executed daily, serve as reinforcement mechanisms that solidify the vibration of abundance within your subconscious. For example, I started dedicating specific moments each morning for intentional visualization, not just fleeting daydreams, but fully immersive mental scenes where I could feel the textures, hear the sounds, and sense the atmosphere of already living my dream life. That level of sensory detail amplified the emotional charge, making the experience more tangible and real to my internal state. Another aspect I uncovered is how the environment, both physical and social, continuously influences internal energy flow. If I placed myself among cluttered spaces filled with reminders of scarcity, bills, negative news, or conversations centered on lack, it was harder to hold on to positive momentum. Conversely, redesigning my surroundings to serve as silent affirmations made a surprising difference. Freshly painted affirmations on my bathroom mirror, images of abundance on my phone wallpaper, or even the choice of music that lifted my mood all fed into a consciousness tuned to prosperity. Nearly imperceptibly, the external world starts acting as a mirror for your internal energy, so intentionally curating your environment becomes a form of energetic hygiene. It's like planting seeds in fertile soil. What you surround yourself with influences what grows within. Focusing on this, I began to see that the emotional responses I cultivated directly impacted how I attracted circumstances. When I experienced gratitude, I was tuning into a frequency that radiated wealth and openness. Conversely, setbacks could trigger feelings of frustration, which would lower my vibration if I allowed them to dominate. Yet, I learned to master the art of emotional resilience. When negativity crept in, instead of indulging it, I viewed it as an alert signaling a need to shift my focus. Redirecting my attention to what I genuinely appreciated or imagining a future scenario where I had already achieved my goal. These acts acted as emotional lifelines. They became my way of recalibrating, ensuring that my internal resonance stayed aligned with my desires. Consider how, in this process, consistent reinforcement acts as a crucial bridge. To embed a belief deeply, repetition is essential, like forging a pathway through thick forest. The more I repeated a new affirmation or visualization, the clearer and more direct that pathway became. Resistance, however, was inevitable. Old doubts and ingrained skepticism would occasionally resurface, testing my resolve. But I understood that these moments were not barriers, but opportunities. They offered me a chance to double down on my intentions, to reaffirm my unwavering commitment to change. Each time I persisted despite discomfort, I was essentially planting a new seed in the garden of my subconscious, gradually crowding out the weeds of doubt. This process also involves a level of self-compassion and patience. When I stumbled, I didn't chastise myself or fall into despair. Instead, I learned to observe my inner landscape with curiosity, gently guiding my thoughts back to foundations of confidence. In the same way, a gardener nurtures fragile sprouts through gentle care. I gave myself space to grow. Every small victory, perhaps an unexpected financial breakthrough or an unexpected insight, became fuel to strengthen my belief in what was possible. I started recognizing that sustained success depends not just on the intensity of my desires, but on my ability to maintain a positive emotional state consistently. One profound shift came when I started seeing challenges as feedback rather than failures. Instead of viewing setbacks as evidence that I was wrong or unworthy, I saw them as signposts, signaling where new beliefs or energetic adjustments were needed. That perspective opened a pathway to humility and self-awareness, encouraging me to examine the hidden assumptions beneath any difficulty. As I gained clarity on these underlying messages, I could reframe them actively. I would ask myself, what belief is this situation revealing that I need to let go of? Then I'd craft a more empowering story to replace that old narrative, anchoring myself back into a vibration aligned with prosperity. Ultimately, I began to understand the importance of cultivating gratitude as an ongoing practice, not just a fleeting gesture of politeness or hope. Gratitude became a way of life, a lens through which I perceived every moment, no matter how small. Recognizing even the tiniest blessing shifted my perspective from one of scarcity to abundance. It amplified my vibrational frequency, acting like a magnet that drew in more reasons to feel grateful. This continual appreciation opened a channel for divine opportunities and inspired actions to flow effortlessly towards me. When I operated from this state of appreciation, I felt more empowered, more connected, and more receptive to abundance in every form. This inner work, therefore, is about creating a harmonious ecosystem within your mind, heart, and surroundings. When these elements work in harmony, your reality responds with swift and unexpected grace. Every thought, every feeling, and every action begins to align perfectly, amplifying your ability to attract what you desire. The truth is, no external circumstance can override the power of your inner universe when it is consistently tuned to the frequency of limitless possibility. Building upon that awareness, I realized there's a subtle but crucial element often overlooked: the power of consistency in daily reinforcement. True transformation doesn't happen for most overnight. It takes persistent intention, almost like practicing a craft until it becomes second nature. Every moment you deliberately choose to focus on possibilities rather than limitations, you are forging a neural pathway that strengthens your inner vibration. It's tempting to get discouraged when old doubts surface or when progress feels slow, but each small act of affirmation, whether through mental focus, breath work, or intentional choice, cements a stronger subconscious wiring. These consistent efforts gradually reshape not only what you believe, but how you perceive the world around you. Another layer to this is understanding the frequency of your emotional state. When you're caught in frustration or impatience, your energy shrinks and contracts, radiating a vibration that signals scarcity. Yet, to truly invite prosperity, energy must expand outward in waves of enthusiasm, hope, or genuine joy. Building on this, I learned that intentionally cultivating feelings of delight and abundance acts as a magnet, pulling opportunities to you rather than chasing after them. For example, I would take intentional moments to immerse myself in memories of past successes or imagine future scenes where everything flows effortlessly. The sensation of exhilaration, even if simulated, became a vital ingredient for attracting what I desired. My internal landscape shifted from one of struggle to one of magnetic openness, and suddenly, doors I hadn't noticed before swung open. Now, think about the influence of your surroundings extending beyond visual cues. Every scent, texture, or sound can either anchor or destabilize your vibrational state. I discovered that intentionally designing my environment was akin to tuning a musical instrument. Every element, no matter how small, either heightened or dulled my frequency. For instance, I replaced clutter with clean, inspiring spaces, layered my work area with symbols of abundance, objects that made me feel prosperous, and used aromatherapy that evoked feelings of vitality and wealth. These environmental cues didn't merely serve aesthetic purposes. They became subconscious anchors reminding me of my intentions. When I experienced a moment of doubt or fatigue, a glance at an encouraging quote or inhaling a familiar scent could reset my mental and emotional tone instantly. Furthermore, the importance of adopting a sense of divine timing can't be overstated. Often, I would find myself feeling frustrated precisely because I was trying to control when manifestations showed up. Yet, the truth is, the universe has its own rhythm, sometimes delivering blessings quietly, behind the scenes, long before they appear in physical form. Recognizing this was a game changer. I started trusting that as long as I maintained a high vibrational state and stayed committed to my intentions, everything would unfold when the conditions were ripe. even if I couldn't see immediate results. It's comparable to planting a seed. You water and nurture it consistently, then patiently wait as nature does its work. Over time, what once felt slow or delayed becomes a natural unfolding, far more effortless when you surrender attachment to the timeline. Another insight that deepened my journey was understanding how resistance acts as a barrier. Resistance manifests as lingering doubts, subconscious fears, or even feelings of unworthiness that crop up when things seem to be aligning. When I noticed myself contracting or withdrawing inward, it was an indication that I was unintentionally blocking my flow. To counter this, I started practicing an attitude of surrender, allowing myself to accept where I was without judgment, trusting that my desires were already on their way. This doesn't mean passivity, but rather a gentle acknowledgement that I am co-creating with the universe. By releasing the need to control every detail and surrendering my attachment to specific outcomes, I opened space for miracles to unfold more organically. Finally, I became aware that gratitude is much more than a fleeting emotion. It acts like a powerful anchor in drawing abundance into my life. Whenever I took a moment to genuinely appreciate what I already had, whether small blessings or significant milestones, I was signaling to my subconscious that enough was already present. This vibration of appreciation sent out ripples into the cosmos, inviting more experiences of fulfillment and prosperity. I noticed that, on days when I practiced deep gratitude, opportunities and resources seemed to show up more effortlessly. It was as if gratitude opened a portal through which abundance could flow more freely, like a magnetic field that constantly pulls in what I focus on with heartfelt appreciation. This shift in perspective transformed my approach from chasing external achievements to cultivating a rich internal environment, one where my state of being became the fertile ground for manifestation. When I realized that my inner vibrations shape my external reality, I understood that I had the most profound influence over my circumstances. My job was no longer about effort alone. It was about consciously maintaining energetic harmony with the life I desired. And in doing so, I became a magnet for opportunities, resources, and experiences that matched my elevated frequency. That realization is what truly unlocked the power to manifest not just momentary desires, but ongoing flow in every area of life. Reflecting on this journey so far, I realize that each insight I've uncovered threads into a larger tapestry, one woven from the fabric of conscious intention, emotional resonance, and consistent practice. The lessons I've learned swirl together as the building blocks of a fundamentally different perspective on life and its endless possibilities. It's like standing at the edge of a vast horizon, where the sky's colors shift and blend with every thought and feeling I nurture. That horizon isn't fixed. It's a reflection of the energy I cast out into the world, shaped by every internal choice I make. When I consider how my mindset influences circumstances, I see an intricate dance unfolding, an ongoing cycle where internal shifts ripple outward, gently bending the framework of my daily experiences. Everything I have encountered points towards the notion that my sense of internal stability creates a field of attraction that can either draw abundance close or push it away. It's like tending a delicate garden where nurturing the right soil, my inner state, allows vibrant growth to flourish organically. The more I attend to the quality of my thoughts and feelings, the clearer it becomes how deeply my external reality responds to these unseen currents. It's almost as if I am a magnet energized by my own inner landscape, capable of drawing in the opportunities one seeks simply by cultivating the right energy. This realization shifts the focus from external forces as the determining factor to a deep understanding that my approach shapes outcomes in subtle yet profound ways. Each day presents opportunities, small moments of choice, that either strengthen my connection to abundance or weaken it. These choices aren't always grand gestures. Sometimes, they're merely silent affirmations, quiet moments of gratitude, or a shift in tone within my own mind. Recognizing this dynamic reveals that every thought is an active participant in the creation of my reality. It's like steering a ship through tranquil waters or turbulent storms. Steering with awareness and purpose becomes the key to maintaining a course that leads toward fulfillment. I've come to see that the internal landscape I cultivate acts as a compass, guiding my actions and perceptions without the need for external validation. When I feel incomplete or disconnected from my inner truth, it becomes painfully evident that my external environment mirrors this dissonance. Conversely, when I root myself in a sense of worthiness and appreciation, I notice opportunities aligning with my vibrational state. Those moments are like gentle whispers reminding me that what I focus on and how I feel about it guides the direction of my experiences. It's a silent dialogue between my inner world and my outer surroundings, a dialogue that is constantly in motion, shaping the story of my life. As I stand in this space of greater awareness, I understand that establishing a new way of being requires patience, resilience, and a steadfast commitment to the feelings I wish to embody. It's akin to planting a seed in fertile ground, knowing that despite the days of rain or drought, consistent nurturing will eventually bring forth a lush, thriving plant. My internal energy acts as that seed, and the daily cultivation of positive states ensures its growth. From willingness to see beyond temporary setbacks to the strength of unwavering belief, these elements merge into a formidable force capable of rewriting what once felt fixed or predetermined. The cumulative effect of these realizations begins to reveal a pattern. That true power is rooted in the ability to consciously engage with the inner self. When my attention is directed intentionally, I am co-creating a reality that naturally responds to my vibrational frequency. All I once perceived as external limitations simply become invitations to refine and elevate my internal stance. The process of aligning my thoughts, feelings, and actions is an act of ongoing refinement, like sculpting a masterpiece from a rough block of marble. Over time, I start to see that the masterpiece isn't constructed through effort alone, but through a harmonious refining of internal energy. From this vantage point, the road forward feels less like a race and more like a dance, fluid, dynamic, and infused with purpose. It's no longer about fighting against circumstances, but about cultivating a state of being that naturally draws what I desire into my life. I feel a quiet confidence growing within, one that whispers that with enough clarity and consistency, the life I envision is not a distant illusion, but an inevitable consequence of the inner work I undertake daily. Every thought I entertain and every feeling I choose becomes a vital part of this unfolding narrative, shaping possibilities into realities in the most elegant, effortless way. When I step back and look at the journey I've been on, what stands out most clearly is how interconnected my inner world really is to the world around me. The shifts I've experienced weren't about changing external circumstances alone, but in opening up a space where my inner landscape could truly flourish. I realize now that the way I hold my beliefs shapes the lens through which I perceive life, coloring each moment with either openness and possibility or scarcity and doubt. It's as if I've been walking through a doorway. Once I understood how to open it from within, outside conditions began to shift naturally, almost as a reflection of my internal clarity. In recognizing this, I see that true power doesn't lie solely in effort or luck, but in cultivating a deep internal harmony. When the mind begins to release layers of fear, judgment, or limitation, a kind of silent grace emerges. Life no longer feels like a constant battle to get ahead. Instead, it feels like a flowing current ready to carry me forward, provided I maintain a state of receptivity. That reception becomes a state of trust in the universe's wisdom, in my own worthiness, and in the divine timing of all things. This shift is subtle but profound, unlocking a sense that abundance isn't something I chase or manipulate into existence, but something I allow into my life by simply becoming receptive to it. What I have learned, perhaps most importantly, is that the act of shifting perception requires patience. It's like learning to dance with life's rhythms instead of resisting them. Each gentle acknowledgement of what I truly desire, paired with the genuine feeling of already having it, strengthens a vibration that pulls circumstances into resonance with my vision. Suddenly, opportunities begin to appear not as coincidences, but as signs, markers that I am on the right path. These moments serve as gentle reminders that inner transformation constantly rewires the outer landscape, inviting abundance and fulfillment to be not distant dreams, but present realities. The true revelation lies in the fact that the internal shift I undertake impacts surrounding energy fields without effort, an unconscious dialogue happening between my intentions and the universe's response. When I can soften my grip on outcomes and focus on cultivating a sense of gratitude and expectation, I become a vessel through which blessings flow effortlessly. It's akin to tuning an instrument so perfectly that harmony naturally emerges. My role becomes more about nurturing an inner soil ripe with positivity and trust than manipulating external events. As I let go of resistance and lean into surrender, I notice the richness of life unfolding with an ease I never had imagined possible. In the end, what remains is a recognition that transforming my relationship with abundance doesn't depend on external conditions alone, but hinges on the internal shift I commit to every day. Through these gentle yet persistent changes, I'm reminded that the journey toward prosperity is ultimately a voyage of discovering the power within, an endless wellspring ready to be tapped into whenever I choose to reflect it. And so, I invite you to see your own life as a canvas waiting for you to paint with the hues of your highest beliefs. As you become more aware of your internal landscape, what you choose to nurture will quietly shape your entire reality, revealing the abundant life that has always been yours to claim.